All right, here we go. Welcome back. And the second lesson for this week is we're going to do the same thing that we did in the first lesson. However, we're not going to use the graph to do it. We are going to learn how to find the equation of a line between 2 points algebraically. So some instances, like we had last week, where we have points that have big numbers in them, and these 2 points have big numbers in them. We have 80, 16, and 88, 14. They're not going to fit on a normal sized little graph. And if you're fortunate enough to have a gigantic graph like this, well, hey, maybe you could use that. But just like last time, there's lots of opportunities for making mistakes here because you're going to be counting and making more points. And in this case, you're going to be making a lot of points, right? You're going to be making something like 10 points to get all the way back over to the y-intercept. And so let's just jump in and start doing that so you can see what it's like here. So here we go. We have 2 points. The left-hand one is higher than the right-hand one, so I'm starting at the left-hand one. And I'm going to make my slope 2. I go down 2, and I'm going over 8 in this case. So I have a slope of negative 2 over 8. And remember, we always want to keep our slopes simplified. So negative 2 and 8 are both divisible by 2. So my slope is negative 1 over 4. Okay, but then in this case, since we're on the right-hand side of the y-axis, we're going to have to go backwards. So we're going to have to go up 1 over 4, up 1 over 4. And you can see how it's going to be easy to possibly mess this up. So I'm going to stop because I'm tired of doing that already. And I'm going to notice something. I'm going to say, hey, my line is kind of heading this direction, right? So I know that my y-intercept is going to be somewhere up there. But I don't want to take the chance of making a mistake by doing it with the graph like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to find the equation of the line algebraically. Okay, so down here there's a list of things that we need to do. So the first thing in the list is find the slope of the line using rise over run. Okay, so I don't know if you remember that rise over run thing, but remember it was y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, so we're going to do that with the 2 points. And then, so we've already done the second one, right? We've estimated the value of the y-intercept. It's going to be somewhere in that circle. Oh, wait a minute. This is not the directions on how to do it. This is what we're supposed to be doing up here. Well, let's ignore that. We already did the first, well, we did the first one, right? So we found the slope here. We didn't use rise over run to do it, but we used we did it graphically. We did draw a straight line to estimate the value of the y-intercept, and now we can write what we think it's going to be. Well, it's probably going to be 40-ish, right? Ish. Somewhere in that area. All right. It might be bigger than 40. It might be smaller than 40. But now let's look at how we can actually do it graphically. Not graphically, algebraically. All right. I've thrown myself off a little bit here. All right. So the first thing we want to do is find the slope. Step 1. So what I'm going to do before I find the slope is I'm going to write my points down. 80, 16. So I'm looking over here at these purple things up in the upper right hand corner. And then we have 88, 14. All right. So that's all the information I need, and I'm going to be able to find the equation of this line. All right, so let's, first things first, find the slope. So we're going to use that y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 to find the slope. So we have x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay, so we have the slope is 14 minus 16 over 88 minus 80. Now, how many of you are saying, hey, wait a minute, don't we already know the slope? Didn't we find the slope up here, right here, where we did all this little work here? Yeah, we did. So what we can do is we can use that to confirm that we got it right using the formula down here. All right, so let's keep going here. So we have 14 minus 16 is negative 2. 88 minus 80 is 8. Well, look at that. We have negative 2 over 8. That's what we had. And if we divide both of those by 2, we're going to end up with negative 1 over 4. So my slope is negative 1 over 4. All right, now what we're going to do is what we did last week, where we take the equation y equals mx plus b. We take our slope, and we just have to pick one of these points. It doesn't matter which one, and there's one that I like better than the other, so I'm going to pick this one right here. For some reason, I like that number 80. It seems like it's going to be easier to work with that number 80. And so we have an x value, a y value, and we have our m. So we're going to plug all three of those things into this equation to be able to find our y-intercept. So we have 16 equals negative 1/4 times 80 plus b. All right, so negative 1/4 times 80, so that's negative 80, because negative 1 times 80 is negative 80. Negative 80 divided by 4 is negative 20, so this is negative 20 plus b. And then I'm going to add 20 to both sides, so I end up with b is 36. All right, what's kind of cool is 36, we said 40-ish, right? The ish represents a range, so 36 is pretty close to 40, so we're good. We're in the right neighborhood. So now all we have to do is take the two things that we found, the slope and the y-intercept, and write out the equation. So we have y equals negative 1/4 x plus 36. And we're done. Okay, so the only thing different than what we did last week is we had to find the slope. So step 1 is the only thing different. Step 2 is what we did last week, where we have a point, we have the slope, and we find b. All right, let's try another one. Okay, there's not a whole lot of space here. Hopefully we can get this to fit in here. I'm going to make my pen a little smaller, so hopefully that'll help. All right, step 1, find the slope. So number 1, slope. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is label the points. x1, y1, x2, y2. Now these are kind of funky numbers, not the best numbers in the world, but we'll find our slope okay. So we have y2 minus y1, so negative 29 minus negative 20. Right away, they throw a curveball at us, subtracting a negative number. All right, and then we have x2 minus x1, so that's 56 minus 44. Okay, so if we simplify the top, instead of subtracting 20, we're going to add 20. So negative 29 plus 20 is negative 9. 56 minus 44 is 12. And this is kind of similar to one of the problems in the first assignment for this week, because we have a 9 and a 12. They're both divisible by 3, so we can reduce our slope to negative 3 over 4. Okay, so we found the slope. All right, number 2, we want to find the y-intercept. Okay, so we find the y-intercept by plugging the slope and one of our points into y equals mx plus b. I'm going to pick this one because I like the fact that they're both even. That odd negative 29 just kind of makes me a little bit anxious. Okay, so if I take y equals mx plus b, and I plug in my y, which is negative 20, my slope, negative 3 over 4, my x value, which is 44, and then plus b. And now I need to simplify this thing. So we have negative 3 times 44. We're going to need a calculator for that. Negative 3 times 44 ends up being 132. Negative 132. Okay, if you can grab a calculator to verify that. Negative 132 then divided by 4 is equal to negative 33. All right, so we have negative 20 equals negative 33 plus b. And then we just have to add 33 to both sides. So we end up with positive 13. So our y-intercept, or b, is positive 13. And then for step 3, write the equation. So we have y equals negative 3/4 x plus 13. Oof, a lot of work, huh? Really, the only additional thing is finding the slope. Once we find the slope, it's the same as last week, where we just plug our slope and a point into y equals mx plus b. All right, let's try another one. Oh, I like this one a lot better already. I don't know if you noticed why I said that, but all of these numbers are divisible by 10 because they all end in 0. So therefore, I like them a lot better than the previous one. But we'll do the same thing. Number 1, find the slope. So x1, y1, x2, y2. Now remember, it doesn't matter which one you label x1, y1, x2, y2. You just have to be consistent. You don't want to mix it up. You don't want to say x1, y2 or x2, y1. You want to keep it consistent. But you could label the first point with the 2's and the second point with the 1's. It doesn't matter. You're going to end up at the same point with your slope. So we have m equals y2 minus y1, 50 minus 80. And then x2 minus x1 on the bottom, so we have 10. Oh, here we go, subtracting a negative again. All right, so 50 minus 80 is negative 30. Negative 10, this is going to become negative 10, or not negative 10, positive 10. It's going to become 10 plus 20, because the subtracting a negative changes to plus, right? So we have 30. So in this case, both of these are divisible by 30. And I know I said something about we like to have our slope in a fraction a while back, but sometimes it's nice to not have our slope in a fraction because it's easier to work with in our equation y equals mx plus b when we're finding b. So in this case, negative 1 divided by 1 is just negative 1. So I'm just going to write this slope as negative 1. Okay, so I have my slope. I'm going to pick a point. In this case, I have a preferred point I'm going to pick, and it's the second one because I don't like negative numbers. It's easier to do things without negative numbers. Okay, so number 2, we're going to find b, or find the y-intercept. Okay, so we find the y-intercept by taking y equals mx plus b and plugging in the slope, the x and the y. Now, I didn't mention it. The x and the y in the equation that I just wrote down here don't have the 2 and the 1 next to them. So in this case, when I plug these things in, I'm simply just ignoring those 2's and 1's. They don't matter at this point. They only matter when we're finding the slope. Okay, so if we take y equals mx plus b, our y value is 50. Our m is negative 1. Our x is 10. And then we just do plus b. So you can see now how that negative 1 is a lot easier to deal with right now than negative 1 over 1, because that would just add some confusion for some people. They'd be like, oh, wait a minute, I multiply by negative 1, then I divide by 1? How's that work? Well, let's just remember that if we can simplify our slope down to an integer like that, we want to do that because it's easier to work with now. Okay, so negative 1 times 10 is negative 10, so we have 50 equals negative 10 plus b. And then we add 10 to both sides. So we have 60 for our b value. So the third step, write the equation. So we have y equals, and in this case, in Schoology, you're going to want to enter only the negative sign, not the 1, remember? So we have negative x. Remember that 1 is there, but we just don't write it. Negative x plus 60. So there we go. All right, your turn. Got a cup. Oh, got 4 of them. Okay, when you're done with these 4, you're going to enter them into Schoology, and the numbers are there to help you know where to put them.